I'm going back for my birthday, but for me. Nice meeting you. Take care. Take care.
I mean, like, it's supposed to see them, and like they can hear you. Live video. Do you want to take a seat? Because it's like a life thing going on. Yeah, yeah. I'm so sorry.
Hello everybody, welcome to the takeout and welcome to Chynge ICO Launch event. My name is Tusin, I'm CEO and founder of Chynge, and I'm moved and I'm touched that everyone is here. There's front row seats, so we're not expecting any ministers or other VIPs, so please do fill them up. Great. So this meetup is, or this event, we had over 100 RSVPs, and it's great that this room is full, and I think people are still filing in. So that the whole thing, the agenda for this event is it's not just from Chynge. So we'll have some I don't want to call them outsiders, but they're part of the family. YY, who is head of the Data Innovation Lab, has been graceful enough to give us a few minutes of his words. And then also we have Michael Ran. This is Michael, it's R-A-N. He's from Stella, from Lightyear, which is the commercial side of Stella, and there's a blockchain technology that we've committed on. We've had the white paper out for about 6 to 8 weeks. There's a lot of feedback. We've tightened it up for clarity, and for better explanations. And the young gentleman, Ian Lee, who is in the house, right here in the front row. So he's a legal eagle by day and a blockchain expert by night. He's been kind enough to basically rip through the white paper and given feedback. So he'll share his thoughts. The good, the bad, the ugly is unvarnished. I've not seen his slides or presentations, so they are uncensored also. And it's great to see familiar faces in the house. Friends, we've gone out to on 10 trips together, and friends from who followed us, from Singapore to Cambodia, back to Singapore, and it's exciting to be in this launch. So I'd like to hand over to YY, who has been a very dear friend for Chynge over the past 4 years. From our NTU days, when we were a part of the incubator and grew along the way. And I welcome YY.
Hi everyone, I'm YY. I run the incubator for PayPal in this office. So over the last 2 years, we incubated about 6 companies. Three of them are kind of blockchain-related companies. And then 10x, Policy Health, and did a very successful ICO. So our official position is that we support our startup to whether it's equity fundraising or ICO. So one thing I want to highlight about the project Chynge. From day one, they didn't create this company because of the ICO. This is very important. So I know a lot of you may have read a lot of this white paper. So some of them you find that maybe it's created last month, right? So they have an idea, probably they have an idea, but the thing is that under such a fundraising environment, they think why don't we just try something new and then do an ICO way with people fundraising. So but they are not. So they've been in a mind for the last 2 or 3 years, and then they've been consistently trying to break this problem. So I believe some of the use cases, like what our official stand for, even for people, is that we think the blockchain is something that the experiment, both actually trying, even internally, we also try the blockchain in our lab, in our lab in US. So I'm looking at what these Stella and all this is fantastic technology. So one of the obvious use cases that how can they use it in the cross-border, particularly about remittance. So how do you save a bit of the bank charges or these things? So I'm glad that actually they take on the challenge and using this blockchain technology to enable that. Having in mind that there are companies that actually go through the proper financial regulations. So unlike a startup that just maybe want to try it out using cross-border without knowing how to do it in the other two ends. Because the other two ends you need to still change straight back to the fiat, be it the US dollar or Sing dollar. So you need people, a team that have fully experience in this domain, and this is not easy. So as a young graduate, I bet they can't do it at all. So these are the things that you can look at the team. I think they're going to explain how the team come about. So they are actually the right mix of the experienced banking and financial service professionals together with a team of the techie who are good in the blockchain. So these are the things that we are very proud of. So I hope that you guys can ask a lot of good questions and interact with them. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, YY. He knows his stuff so well that he speaks off the cuff and everything comes out so smoothly and eloquently. So today we're launching our ICO, and we're proud of ourselves that we cracked the code around payments and around risk on FX and risk around money laundering. And then we'll share this over the next 45 to 60 minutes or so. So this is an ICO and it's being recorded. So we have a financial disclaimer. Our legal advisor, legal counsel, has put this in. Basically, there's a lot of forward-looking statements that we'll be making over the next hour, and that and most of it, all of it, may or may not happen depending on how well we execute and what the market conditions are. This is our Telegram group, so do join in. It's t.me/change, or you can go search on Change and join us. We're about almost 12,000 strong. There's a lot of lively discussions in here, and I've learned a lot from the questions that have been asked. So at Change, our business is money transfers. Okay? So the money transfers that are cross-border, that's our focus, and how to digitize it. And that as soon as you go cross-border, you will have to meet compliance, regulatory requirements, and how do we go about that, and how do we make it smart so that we can run this really efficiently. So the key takeaway message for today are that one is that we have a deep management team, not just within the company, but also outside. Right? So we have an external board of advisors and how they adapt. We believe that we have an excellent blockchain project. It is a classic use case, and how we interpret that and apply that within the business. And last but not least is that what will make it successful. because money transfer is a commodities business. So what are the key differentiators that we have in place that will allow us to be competitors? So first and foremost is the management team. So I'm just blessed that we have a deep and experienced team. So we are not a bunch of kids that just got out of school. We have 80 years of combined experience in banking, in analytics, in technology, and that we know how to build and sell enterprise class software. I have a slide of country managers, and I'll save, we're saving that for Franz, who's director of partnerships, and he'll tie that in terms of how we expand our footprint. Some board of advisors, we have a wide range of skill sets, but they complement each other. The one on the right, so you have PayPal. We are tying up the official items that we have with the gentleman, expert in payments, and I think he's about to get a major promotion, and I think once that's done, we can announce and we're very, very excited about having him come on board. So we have payments, and then we have an XCO of Central, with Chynge, traditional banker, but he's excited about the technology of blockchain, AI, machine learning, visual recognition, biometrics, and how we can create new business models. So across the whole gamut, right, we have technology, right, with Tusin and Stella. We've convinced Stella that we have a very compelling solution in the way we position, and they've come and sit on our board of advisors so that we get things right, and then we get to get into Stella very early on, to test all the different features. This is the classic, and it's well documented as the problem of money transfers, or what we call remittances, right? It is slow, right? It takes people 2 days, 3 days, 1 day would be fast. It's expensive, so you have fees, you have FX rates that are not transparent. And then when you finally deliver the funds, you may get surprise charges like interbank rates, right? Or corresponding bank rates. And it's difficult because there's a lot of compliance, a lot of KYC, source of funds, use of funds, lots of paperwork, and just a lot of friction. Our solution, is around what we call IFS. It's instant. So we're on a blockchain, how we can do instant settlement and instant delivery. We're going after free service, no fees, 0 fees, and that will just sustain our business off the FX. And what kind of models can we use to predict customer behavior? Are you a money launderer? Are you a financial terrorism? Are you commit fraud, tax evasion, corruption, all that? And how do we keep the dirty money from coming into the system? And Chief Compliance Officer MD will explain more of that. And when we feel that is one of our compelling differentiators. So our token, the Chynge token, is a payment token, right? Not unlike Bitcoin and Ether. So it's a means of exchange and a store of value. But when you try to send Bitcoin from to your friend in another country, during that transmission, there's a lot of price volatility, right? So you don't really know how much your friend is going to get. Are you going to send it to your family? How much your mom is going to get? So we removed that risk. We figured it out, and that our token, in addition to being a store of value, is also a store of exchange rate. So that becomes law. So if I'm sending to Indonesia, it's 10,000 rupiah. The world can change. There's a volcano eruption. There's a tsunami. There are earthquakes. It will stay locked at 10,000. And we're licensed. We're licensed and regulated. So we have AML process built in, and so our token is also an AML token. So these two features are key differentiators that are in addition to a classic payment token. So this is, a bit busy, and I'll walk you through this. And this is our business, sending money from the left to the right, right? So I'm sending money in Singapore, sending to my mom, let's say in Indonesia. And sending money at the end will also have to include not just send to banks, but other options, right? Because mom has a bank account, like a mobile wallet from a simple, feature phone, a candy bar phone, and then also an agent network. So if you look at the two ends, right? Sending money is a commodity business. It's all the same. I give you money, it appears on the other end. And people will shop around, right? They're not loyal. They will move for a fraction of a penny. So you do that, right? You go to Mustafa, what's the rates? You go to Arcade, and what are the rates? Like Canada, and so forth. So we want to minimize friction. So the customer experience has to be the same, right? We can't, even though we use tokens, we can't have our senders buy tokens. Right? So give me a G, given tokens, send tokens to mom. Mom gets tokens and she doesn't know what to do with it, and she has to figure out how to sell that. So what we've done is that we've kept the user experience status quo. That on the left-hand side, right, the sender will give us $6, and the other end, mom will get rupiah, right? And what we've then done is that all that digitization of converting tokens is abstracted away from the customers on both ends. Right? And really, they don't care. Right? They just want good price, good service. So how do we provide that? Right? So we do the tokenization in the back office. So we get the fiat, $6, we convert that to tokens, our Chynge tokens, and then we send that to Indonesia, to Chynge Indonesia, right, which exists today. And we will then convert that to rupiah and deliver that. So all this tokenization that happens very quickly within minutes, right? So in the back office, we do AML, right? Anti-money laundering, person financing, etc. And that the buyers don't see that. And so that's the whole end-to-end process. So what's key here is that the customer experience remains unchanged. They still do business as usual. So they get fiat, they receive fiat from both ends. All that digitization is abstracted away from the customer to the back office. So the back office realizes all the efficiency, all the time savings, and cost savings away from the customer. If you talk to fintechs who do payments, this is the holy grail. Right? They want to match make on both ends. And so that, let's say, this example from Singapore sending to Japan, Japan back to Indonesia, Japan back to Singapore, instead of both crossing on bank rails, can we sit in the middle and be like a safe harbor, right? And then so that we receive money from both ends. Once both are received, right, we settle, we tighten the funds, and then it goes back out. But it stays on the side, right? People call it offsetting, netting, nostro accounts. That's the whole concept. It works great in theory, right? So in reality is that when you have perfect matches on both ends, so if you're saying $10,000 in SGD, and then 100, a million yen coming the other way, then that works. In reality, you're always going to be heavy on one side. And so what happens, right? Only part of it can run, the other part will have to run on bank rails. What are the options? So we figured out that this is a secret sauce that we'll top it up. Okay? So we'll top it up, and that's how we remove the FX risk away from the customer. But it has to go somewhere. Right? So we basically absorb that risk. And then we'll model the business. How long will we hold on to that? It's going to be hours. Is it 1 or 2 days? 3 days will be max. And then we'll price that risk and then end saying is that we'll get perfect matches all the time, and these transactions will run. Over, 3/4 of all ICOs run on Ethereum and the smart contracts. Very early, so we looked at that, and then, but we also looked at other options, and Stellar was one of them. And it was a different decision because the mainstream was on Ethereum, we were in Stellar, but there were compelling reasons. And so we did our research, and we wrote an article. You can find it on Medium. It's like a David Letterman, right? The top 10 list. Right? So these are top 10 reasons why we went with Stellar. Feel free to read it, and it's just short paragraphs on each. But there's 3 main reasons why, and I think the first one is just speed to market. Because the market changes so fast that if we were to live an Ethereum solution, we would have done a lot of programming. Stellar is optimized for financial services and for financial products. So it was a matter of configuring and getting them speed to market. The other part was, number 4 is the Lightning Network. What this means is that we are able to run a private chain of transactions. So we are licensed and we're regulated, and we have to comply to things such as data privacy, right? Data protection, customer privacy, data sovereignty. And so the Lightning Network allows us to do that. It's not available now. It's coming towards the end of the year, but we're committed to that, to the technology, and then we're working very closely with the team. Boris is part of sits on the board of advisors, and how do we, work together, making that choice available. Liquidity is key, right? This is what allows us to run perfectly matched transactions going both ways. So we'll build liquidity pools. They'll give us liquidity, but in the event that that's not enough, we can always scale over to Stellar. Right? So they have a network of what we call anchor partners that will provide liquidity, and we can scale over to that. The price is a little bit higher. There's a bit more of a risk, but on the whole, it will be cheaper than running transactions with banks. I think that's my last slide. We're talking about 2 key things. One is, that sets us apart. One is working very early with regulators. So Aaron was, when it took us 2 years to get a license with MS. One of the conditions that they put on me was that, I had to go out and get a real compliance officer, right? Subject to the review and subject to the approval. Gave them a lot of resumes. They said no to a lot of people, and finally, so this is, it's a key part of our strategy. And another one is the partnerships and how we scale the business, and Franz will talk about that. So I call on and I welcome Aaron. Michael, the first so Michael, why don't you come and introduce yourself and just thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'll run you hi everyone, my name is Michael. My name is Michael, and I work for Lightyear. Just now, Joe, with the slides, read this slide. So the relationship between, I'm actually a Lightyear employee, but the relationship is Stellar is an open source, open network for anyone to use, and Lightyear is the project like Red Hat for Linux, something like that. And I work for the for-profit company of Stellar. And I help customers and partners like Joe, like Chynge, to integrate to the network and use the network for payments, cross-border remittances, and SEOs, and also develop distributed apps. So that's me. I've been with Stellar for a few months and very happy to see a lot of exciting projects launching on the network. Joe, Chynge being one of them. So let's talk about ICO for a little bit. We've seen like a million ICOs this year. Not 96% of them are issuing tokens on Ethereum. But we've seen a lot of reasons why that is not a great solution. Well, first of all, Ethereum is low. It costs a lot of money to issue tokens because each transaction has a cost. And the token, the contract issuance, the contract execution takes 2 minutes, but the problem is when the network is congested, it can take hours for you to completely sell your tokens, right? And also, we heard so much about tokens being lost, being stolen, being hacked, because you actually have a smart contract, you write all the code, and upload that code into the network and anyone can see. So imagine there is a bug found on the Ethereum network. People found about it and read your code and see that, oh, you actually have a loophole in your code. They can steal all the tokens. All the tokens on the Ethereum network is public. So we don't believe that ERC20 is a solution for ICOs. And we have all this in mind and designed this ICO platform, Stellar, that solves most of the problems. I'll give you some figures, for example. For Stellar, each block reaches consensus in 5 seconds, which means that you buy and sell tokens within 5 seconds. And it can be less. And the cost is really cheap. For 1 million token transaction, the cost is only 1 token. So 1 or 2 tokens. So basically 1 out of a million. And also for security, we have in mind that we don't want to expose all your smart contract, your business logic in a smart contract. We think that's the wrong approach. Because think about most businesses, they issue a token on Ethereum. What they actually want to achieve is to tokenize their assets. They want people to work in a tokenized economy in a tokenized way, but not actually putting all their entire business model on blockchain to execute. It's really slow, it's very costly to run anything on blockchain as of today. So we have all this in mind and we designed a multi-operation atomic transaction model. So basically what it means is you can do a bunch of operations in one transaction atomically to issue tokens, lock accounts, revoke the access to accounts, and buy and sell tokens. And the code is really maintainable and readable. It's easy, even you don't have great Solidity engineers, you can maintain the smart contract code without getting exposed to all the risk. I think that's one of the reasons why Joe just talked about they choose Stellar. There are multiple other reasons. Like we have Stanford professor David Mazura who wrote the consensus protocol. It's different from POW, it's different from POS. It's called Stellar Consensus Protocol. It makes it very easy to join the network without having to trust every single node within the network. So what does it mean is for small enterprise, if you want to join some other blockchain network, maybe they need to validate you, and when you join the network, you have to trust everyone to get consensus. In Stellar network, we remove the barrier of entry, while at the same time we guarantee the security of validation. So that's security. And I just talk about cost and speed. And I just talk about consensus protocol. And also, I think I missed the best part, which is day zero trading. When you issue something on Ethereum, if you know how much the exchange charge for ERC20 to be listed on exchange, it's crazy amount of money to be charged. On Stellar network, we actually have a built-in order book and an exchange. So what it means is if you issue something on Stellar network, you start to trade it immediately on day zero. So if you issue a token, I think we provide this decentralized exchange and you can just start buying it right away. Right? So that's some of the benefits of using Stellar network. Joe have 10 reasons. I just talk about a few of them. But I want to talk about why we think Chynge is a valuable partner for Stellar. I look at the white paper of Joe, and I believe we have the same mission. which we believe the financial system is broken, and we believe the global remittances business is broken. There's a lot of hidden charges. It's very slow. It takes days to reach the customers, and you don't know how much fees they charge in the middle, and they actually, multiple financial institutions charge you in the middle. So we want to build this infrastructure to power a global payment protocol so that the people who don't have access to financial institutions can make use of the financial system that they are supposed to use. And we are building this infrastructure, but the infrastructure itself is not valuable without partners actually using it. So Chynge is a valuable partner for us, who actually have the expertise in the field, who actually have a global team running the business and reach out to people who have the needs for using the infrastructure. So we can work together to achieve this goal. So I'm very happy to see the companies like Chynge and more DF companies working with us and coming up with better solutions to solve the financial problems. I'm very happy that today I can get invited here. I'm very honored because I just joined the team a few months back and see a lot of exciting projects happening. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, thank you for your team. And I wish and thank you, YY, for organizing this. I know YY a few years ago when I was a student, and happy to see he's doing a lot of this new thing. So yeah, if you have any idea about how you can work with Stellar, use our payment protocol to do settlement, to do fiat currency payments, transfers, cross-border payments, and also issue tokens, feel free to talk to me after the session. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Michael's a good friend, and we're just so honored to be working with Stellar. If you don't already know, Stellar is a really fine platform. It's open, it's complete, it's decentralized, it's lightning fast, and it's dedicated to building financial products that connect people all over the world. So as a financial service provider, that's what Chynge is, by the way. We know that we can get a great deal of synergy and by being plugged in with them and other players on the Stellar platform. My name is Aaron, and I'm the Chief Compliance Officer of Chynge. It's my pleasure to just share with all of you some stuff that you may already have read and heard about. Maybe you've read our white paper about the compliance aspects of what we do. So I will just go through that really quickly, and then we can talk a little bit also about the crypto regulatory landscape in Singapore today. I think that will be of interest to you as well. You know already that we've always put this up there, that Chynge, we believe that we make the world a better place. We make payments instant, free, and safe. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the safe part of it. You already know that the traditional remittance business and industry worldwide is huge. It is somewhere in the region of $700–800 billion a year, and of which about a seventh of that business is done underground. It's done by hawalas and black market operators. That's $100 billion of money exchanging hands outside, crossing borders, outside of the control and the watch and involvement of banks and remittance companies and governments. The governments and the regulators have to play catch up because of all of the crime that is the motivation of money laundering, terrorist financing, and fraud. And so governments and regulators come up with so many complex and ever evolving regulations and laws. And here you see that the remittance business has to be licensed, just like banking and many other kinds of financial services. Banks and financial institutions struggle with the burden of being compliant. I worked in banking for 15 years, in which capacity I oversaw legal and compliance issues in a number of banks, global banks, in Asia, in Singapore, and there are tons of policies, there are tons of procedures, there are many big compliance teams struggling day and night to help the banks and the FIs to comply with their obligations under the law and regulation. And they still can't get it right. You know this as well as I do because almost every other day there is some report in the news about a bank that has been caught or exposed for being involved in money laundering or terrorist financing. All the big boys and the small boys are all getting caught. And many of them who haven't been caught, they just haven't had a chance to be caught. Right? So you also know that cases like 1MDB, this is a worldwide fraudulent movement of money for personal enrichment, for bribery and corruption, and many banks all over the world in the region were involved one way or the other. They were somewhere involved in one of the chains of the transactions. So banks and FIs continue to struggle with those things, and technology can help substantially to mitigate and address those risks. Customers, in the end, I don't know whether you realized it, but customers bear the cost of this compliance burden. The banks that hire many compliance officers and many people, auditors and so on, pass on those costs. They have no choice but to pass on those costs to the customers by increasing their fees. And the customer experience is terrible because it takes 1 month to open a corporate bank account. You know all of these stories as well. This slide is just a very quick overview, a pictorial representation about how Chynge has developed a method to address financial crime through financial institutions. We start by building with artificial intelligence, the application of business rules and risk indicators that are common in all kinds of financial crime. And then we add a machine learning aspect to it so that the machine, as it processes more transactions and the decisions that are made as a result of the analysis is fed back into the system, the machine rapidly becomes the smartest person in the room. And that allows people to have a great deal of confidence that the banks and the remittance companies are being run properly with an eye to stopping financial crime. Yeah, so that's really what that slide means. This is these cartoons are just a summary. The top row is where you talk about the new way of doing things that Chynge is introducing to the industry, and below you can see the current way. So artificial intelligence with exhaustive, comprehensive, and yet flexible business rules for you to address financial crime. Automated self-learning is machine-assisted, every aspect, the analysis as well as the filing of suspicious transactions, which we are obliged by law to do, by the way, will all be done machine-assisted. And it leads to the benefits to the industry that we've talked about. Because of our technology and the use case that we are bringing through AI machine learning to solve this particular industry problem, we managed to get licenses from the regulators of 2 countries, Singapore and Hong Kong. They fully expect us to use this system even as we carry out our business. And we're very proud to say, and you know already if you've been following the news, that we are entered into the fintech sandboxes in the UK, in Abu Dhabi, and in Brunei. In Brunei, in fact, we've had the great honor and privilege to be invited by the regulator recently to build a compliance system for the entire remittance business in Brunei. So we're so proud that we can actually feel considered to bring that sort of value to what is a pretty small but significant and manual paper-based remittance industry in Brunei. We want to help them do things better. We want to help them do things right and to do the right things. I want to spend just 2 slides talking about the crypto regulatory landscape. I know all of you are interested in that. Just very broad trends, if you like. You all know by now that the US regulator is the yardstick for crypto regulation since, and especially quite recently in the last year or 2, the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission of the US, has been issuing guidelines and notices and press releases, trying to make sure that everybody knows that you're watching very carefully how the crypto landscape evolves. At the same time, just 2 months ago, we saw a statement from NASDAQ in which they said, one day soon, we're going to be a crypto exchange as well. So it means that as the industry and the activity in cryptos expands and evolves, the major regulators all around the world are going to basically pay attention to what the US says and does. The second point is about the role of centralized regulators and SRO, self-regulatory organizations. There are not too many around the world. We know of some. Switzerland has some where the financial services providers and the form associations that they help one another and they regulate themselves rather than to have an external regulator do that. So we see that in Switzerland. It's a great role model. Centralized regulators well, one example is you might remember recently when CoinNet in Japan got hacked and lost a bunch of cryptos. In very short time, less than a week, 16 crypto exchanges in Japan got together to form a association. And they said, look, we're going to implement best practices. We're going to help to watch each other's back. And that's really a very good trend. So we'll see more and more of that happening very soon. The third point about joint regulations by regional groupings is really about these supra-national or regional national groupings that decided that they want to regulate global crypto activity as a group. And they want to bring a certain robustness and a certain kind of stringency to how the key problems in crypto activity is conducted. The G20 meeting recently spent a lot of time discussing about their approaches, how do they view cryptos and crypto business, what are the risks involved for the consumer, for the market, and how these can be mitigated and addressed. So we're going to see more and more of these as well. So the EU is another a vanguard of this particular kind of trend. Last slide, I promise. In Singapore, just a sneak peek into Singapore. Singapore is, I must say, one of the more open and welcoming countries in the crypto space, and for good reason. Singapore is a well-known international financial hub, and we know that there's lots of business that needs to be done. Money makes the world go round, but the risks have to be known, they have to be analyzed, they have to be met. And every player in the ecosystem has a responsibility to do that as well. So the 4 key areas that regulators are concerned with about crypto assets in Singapore. The first one is cryptos as a payment tool. I don't know whether you remember, but in 2014, the tax authority here, IRAS, issued a statement saying that, in our view, crypto assets are commodities. They're more like commodities. They're not really a monetary kind of a tool, But the scene is evolving, as you know, and we've seen in the past 1 year, the Monetary Authority of Singapore issuing a draft of a Payment Services Act in which it will regulate crypto intermediaries and companies and businesses, and with a view that cryptos can be currencies, it can be money and payment tools. Crypto exchanges are currently not regulated. There are a dozen of them being set up in Singapore every week. I don't really know that. Some of you might be even involved in these crypto exchanges. Singapore continues to be a good place for all of these things to happen. But as I mentioned, the Payment Services Act will soon introduce a degree of regulation and compliance obligations on these exchanges. And it makes us, we are well placed in Chynge to monitor those developments and to stay ahead of the curve. Point three, ICOs, you know, what is the attitude of the regulators towards initial coin offerings? It is generally, I think, still regarded as an unregulated activity, unless, okay, and this is the MES has already said that in their guidance note, that unless the token falls under definition of a security under the Securities and Futures Act, in which case it has to comply with all of the usual prospectus offerings and those requirements. But otherwise, the MES says, we, the MES, going to stay out of the way for companies that want to raise money, crowdfund, with the issuing of digital tokens. Investments, I put that in inverted commas because we know that investments is a word that sort of drives some people crazy. You know, it suggests that, how do you evaluate the value of what you're buying and how long you're holding it for and what you trade it in for? But Singapore, for example, has said quite clearly, for example, that if you make some money out of trading in your cryptos, that's not taxable. I think some of you know that already, and you're like smiling, yes. You know, that's how you're gonna like make your retirement nest egg. In that sense, you know, that some clarity has been brought into the whole area of people who buy and sell and trade crypto assets regularly. And we're pretty happy about that. So these are just 4 areas for us to bear in mind. If you have some questions about them, I'm sure we can try to address them as well. It's a big but important topic in the whole presentation. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and I just wanted to ask you to give a shout out to my colleague, Franz, Director of New Markets, going to share with us about what we're going to do around the world. Franz, where are you? Oh, here you are.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm Franz from New Markets. So my job is to basically look for partnerships in countries where we are venturing into, and to identify people we can work with. Joe was mentioning at the beginning of the speech that we have a deep management team here in Singapore. Well, this is what we try to replicate when we work with people abroad. Now, these slides that I'm showing you would have been totally blank when I joined in July of last year. In the meantime, we've managed to structure teams in Australia, Brunei, the UK, Indonesia, Japan, and Hong Kong, with experienced team heads, experienced in the areas of business and academy. As Aaron mentioned earlier on, we are regulated in 2 countries. Getting our license in Singapore has been a time-consuming process that took close to 2 years. The MES is very careful and cautious about who they give remittance licenses to. They are not handing out remittance licenses to traditional organizations anymore. They're handing them out to good fintechs that are able to show that they have a real process and a real compliance officer on board. Hong Kong was also quite long, but it's done after the Singapore process. The sandbox strategy that we spoke about, that Aaron mentioned, is quite clear. We're trying to get a full license in these countries, but some countries insist that we first work in a restricted space. So sandbox is like getting a restricted license. Brunei is a small country, but it is key in our strategy in getting Sharia compliance so that we can further expand into the Middle East, not only through the UAE, but also into Saudi Arabia, etc. We have more applications in the pipeline. I can't tell you which countries they are for, since it's not yet approved. So at the moment, 5. Chynge has incorporated companies in several countries, and it will continue to do so as we expand the licenses and the sandboxes. So you've recognized the flags. Center bottom, Indonesia as well. With the Brexit vote, we will need to look for a second home in Europe, and that's one of the 5 applications. I was very fortunate in June to be able to head to Switzerland for the market entry Switzerland bootcamp. What that was it was a 2-day conference during which was held at Impact Hub in Zurich, and they explained basically how one sets up a company in Switzerland, what the landscape is for fintech companies, and I got a chance to meet 5 different banks at the event, lawyers and various service providers. So it was very informative. Every country has a different lay of the land. I mean, setting up a company in the UK can be done remotely over the internet, like in Singapore. In the UK, in Switzerland, you can't. You've got to go through lawyers. So it's a lot more complicated. So we'll be setting up soon in Switzerland. And that will basically wrap up our European strategy with EU plus the UK and Switzerland. It will cover most of Europe. This is not possible without working with partners in the ecosystem, in several types. 4 financial partners. On the retail banking side, UOB, who hosted us in the Innovation Lab for about 3 to 4 months. PayPal, who's, well, it's been our home here at this desk for 9 months. UBS, doing more of the wealth management part of the business. So that covers the entire spectrum of the financial industry. On the tech side, we've been in the innovation lab of IBM Watson as well. And one key player has been People Go, and what they're doing for the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore. So basically, the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore, so Ministry of Labour in some countries, since we're streaming for other countries here, they asked 2 companies to design an app for foreign workers. And we're working with one of these organizations, one of the 2 organizations, People Go. It's the only organization where you've got a function to remit money out. So the foreign workers have access to information about their legal rights. They can write in if they haven't been paid on time, if working conditions are improper, etc. So that's a key product, and we will be replicating that in other countries as well. At the last line, you've got the ecosystem that we've been working with abroad, in Japan, in France, in Hong Kong, and in Switzerland. Very useful partners, source of information. If you have your own fintech company and you're looking for expansion abroad, do work with people who are on the ground. There are many associations who will be able to help you. Contact them through the embassies, etc. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'd like to pass the microphone to Ian. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me without the mic? Okay, hi guys, my name is Ian. As Joe introduced, I'm a legal eagle, which means that I'm actually in data, I work in the capital markets. I assist in IPOs, RTOs, and cryptocurrency, blockchain is just a passion of mine. So I do advise in certain projects, I do consult in certain projects, but mostly just a passion. So what Joe did not tell you was that I actually only came across Chynge last Thursday. So this is really new project for me. And he's been really accommodating. I've been emailing him questions because, well, it says I'm a potential buyer. But unlike all of you, I have not been whitelisted yet. Part of me thinks, depending on how well I present today, maybe my whitelist will go you. Maybe not. We'll find out. Okay, so, crypto. I first heard about blockchain about 2 years ago. It was after a night of drinking. I have a friend who's a developer who's preaching about all the wonderful things that blockchain could do, but I only really got into this space like last year when I started investing in projects and reading about it. Now, ICOs, I think, has come a long way. It's read white papers from about 3 years ago, you realize that they're all very technical based. Whereas nowadays, when you look at white papers, they're all pure marketing. Every single white paper will tell you how big a market it might address, what's their potential revenue, but they don't really talk about much about the technology anymore. So in my mind, there are 3 different kinds of blockchain projects. There are blockchain projects who are looking to platforms trying to come up with new protocols. Second type of project, there will be projects who are trying to squeeze blockchain into the existing business just so they can raise money and ride on it. And third, you have businesses who see an existing process and realize that blockchain can actually complement it, improve it, and make it more efficient and reduce costs. So in my mind, Chynge falls within this third category. It's an industry that definitely can benefit from blockchain. And in fact, it's one of the industries where I feel that personally, you don't even need to use blockchain in a very creative way. I mean, it's straightforward, remittance. You're basically talking about transfer of assets from one country to another, which is what blockchain is. It's a distributed ledger. It's a way for you to record transactions. Now, when I came across Chynge, one of the reasons that I really liked Chynge was firstly, as Joe's been so kind to say, and emphasize on its regulation. Now, we all know that, like, beginning of like September last year when China cracked down, the market went into a period of FUD. December was when then it recovered. December was all-time high, and now with all the regulators stepping in again, the market is basically back. Now, I'm a hodler, so my portfolio is too good. But personally, as someone in the legal industry, I think regulation is important. In case you guys don't know, in the unregulated space, if you guys invest in a project and the project promises to deliver, they say that, oh, I'm going to build you a unicorn, and you invest in it. And it turns out 3 days later, they said, oh, I tried, I failed, and now I lost all your money. There's no way for you guys to get your money back. So regulation is actually key for the future of ICOs and certain blockchain projects, I'd say. So, the fact that Chynge is regulated, or the fact that it actually began this conversation with MAS 2 years ago, is something that really appeals to me. Now, I work with IPOs and RPOs, so I work closely with MAS, the SGX, and I know that they are quite stringent. Now, most of you, I don't know whether you guys actually bother to read the white paper of projects to actually do your due diligence, but if you don't, then I would say that investing in projects that are regulated kind of lends a certain amount of credibility. Like, you don't have to worry about the fact that you didn't do your due diligence because the MAS did their due diligence. And like, if this was in another country besides Singapore, I might be a bit more skeptical, like maybe it's Indonesia government that gave the license. But MAS, Singapore, I think we can trust them a little bit. So, regulation is one thing. Now, the other thing I really like about this project is the fact that it is not putting blockchain right in front. With many projects these days, when you go, you're saying how, I'm using blockchain to solve this problem. You can take control of your money, create a private key, public key. But come on, let's be honest. How many of us really enjoy using private and public keys? I once attended an event where the developer of Tusin, he was worried on, should we keep our money on exchanges? He said, I keep my money on exchanges. Because let's be honest, when we trade, we don't want to always have to access our private key, public key. People inherently are lazy. I mean, I'm lazy. I keep my money on exchanges. I keep a small portion in cold storage, but not all of it. So the way that Chynge has positioned itself is as a back-end solution. Ideally, if you were to use Chynge, you would never have to deal with your private and public keys. You would receive fiat and you would send it to the receiver. He or she would receive it in their home country in fiat. Now, from a user perspective,
you got to think about the remittance market. Yes, definitely we have big institutions who transfer huge amounts of money, but a big bulk of the people who use remittance services are people with blue-collar jobs who are sending money back to their home country. Now, they aren't tech savvy enough, or they might even not even have access to a computer or even a cold storage device, which means all they care about is speed, cost, and honestly how easy it is. Which is why I think change from a business perspective is really good, because it's not overly complicated. Okay, so bad and ugly. So yes, Joe has not vetted what I'm about to say, but it's nothing too bad. I actually think that change is really good in the sense that it's narrowly focused itself to just solve the remittance issue with the added KYC compliance, because remittance and money laundering, terrorist financing, they go hand in hand. So Chynge has positioned itself really well to focus on money laundering, terrorist financing. That way, I suppose, the government are more likely to work with it. Now, a fact that you guys probably don't know if you didn't watch the YouTube video of Chynge was that Chynge is actually working with banks to perfect their AI system that deals with fraud, and they're actually working to set the threshold for the AI technology that in the end banks might adopt as their standard. So if that really works, then I think Chynge as a market leader in that aspect has a lot of potential. Now, the slightly bad part about this is that because Chynge is so narrowly focused in one area, you might think that compared to other projects which are looking to solve many different issues, Chynge is boring. Okay. So in my portfolio, I invest in projects who dream big and which might give me high speculative returns. Chynge, on the other hand, I would classify it as a more low-risk investment, but it's a business that I'm pretty confident will succeed. So in terms of like 1,000x, if that's what you're hoping, I'm not too sure. But I'm reasonably confident that compared to many of the other projects out there, this is one of the better ones. So, other things about Chynge that I like is how transparent they are. If you actually go and look at their white paper, you'll see that they actually put the wallet addresses of the team, the advisors, and of their reserve tokens. Now, many projects, they say that, hey, we lock in like 2-year period for our advisors, but you don't know that. You can only rely on their word. And some projects, they don't even have a lock-in period. So this is something that I really like about Chynge. You can see whether or not the founders of the team is cashing out. You can audit it by yourself. And another thing that I like about Chynge is the fact that they're built on Stella. So like many of the people presented before me said, most of the projects are built upon Ethereum. I've spoken to a lot of founders and I've asked them, why do you build on Ethereum? And they tell me, we build on Ethereum because it's the biggest network, it's the most secure. But come on, from a business perspective, Ethereum has so many issues, and if you don't need a Turing complete language, which is susceptible to, well, it's more difficult to code and it's less auditable, then there's no reason for you to use Ethereum. For a platform like Chynge, who relies on high transactions, if they were to build upon Ethereum, they would be basically betting on the fact that Ethereum would come up with Casper, they will solve all those issues now. Because if Ethereum does not, this project basically wouldn't work. So I really like the fact that they took a pragmatic approach. They decided to build upon Stellar. And well, I only really got into Stellar about last week, which is where I met Chynge at Stellar event actually. So I think Stellar is a really good project as well. You guys should take a look at it if you have not. But the downside about Stellar is that it's not a very complete language. So it has limitations, but in the context of Chynge, I think it's the perfect platform. Okay, so that's basically it, guys. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.
Well, thank you, Ian. That was Ian Lee unplugged, right? And it's unvarnished. He didn't give me talking points. Well, it was really good. I mean, a lot of good. The bad wasn't bad. The ugly wasn't too ugly. Even the ugly is, prettier than me. So that's so on that note, we want to open this up to the floor. You've received a lot of information. We want to make this a dialogue, bi-directional. So I would like to welcome back Aaron and Franz, and we'll do, we'll field your questions, not just I think from within the room. Are we also doing from the community? Karen? Yeah. So Karen, you want to guide us? Oh, Sandy? Okay. Sandy, do you have a question? Hello? Thank you. Hello?
We can take some questions now. We have some questions from our community, and I'll let Karen take over.
Hello. So these three questions came in from our community, and so out of a bunch of others, and we picked these because they were a bit more interesting. So one of them is from Henry Susanto. Looking for the cryptocurrency right now, how can you be sure we're strong enough to make the price go to the top? Do you have enough back-end investors or something that can make your price stable or increase? And he gives an example of Atlantis Blue. They have a gemstone to make their price stable and go up. Do you have something similar to that?
Joe, as your lawyer, you are forbidden to answer this question. Just refer to the disclaimer at the start of the presentation. We probably have some.
Okay. I think, let me take the last part first. So, what was that token that has, it has backed by some?
Atlantis Blue.
So I think that is like a stone, a semi-precious stone, right, a gemstone. So I think, I don't know much about ICOs, but, my legal counsel, says no a lot of times to me, like this evening. So one of the things I first learned was that when you have a token, you can't securitize it with something like whether it's a house, a building, gemstones, diamonds, gold, etc. So I think first and foremost is that we're not like that, right? So we're not security backed, and we've not contravened the SFA, the Securities and Futures Act. So I think we're actually careful there. And that we're purely a payment token, right? Just like, it's a store of value, means of exchange. And then again, the first part is that, if I read it right, is basically what will cause the price of change to go up or down. How can I be sure? I can't be sure if my wife is going to still me. So basically, when we look at the price of CLIP, right, the change token, I can't tell you, looking into the crystal ball whether it's going to go up or down. But if you look at the economic theory around the supply and demand, so you'll see that the supply is fixed. So we've made a promise in the white paper that it can only go up so high, right? So the ICO is 800 million tokens. And that if you don't trust me, you can look at the smart contract, and it's capped. So the supply is fixed. It can't go up. It may go down, right? Because we don't sell everything. We can choose to burn it, and it becomes less than what we promised. And then is the demand side, right? So the demand side may vary. So what may cause it to go up? So there are three main things. So the first one is around what we call existing corridors, right, and the growth of those corridors. So for example, we have Singapore to Indonesia. Today we do $100,000, of business a day. That will grow up. It will grow to $500,000, $1, $3, $5 million a day. and that will exert an upward pressure on demand. Okay? The second factor is more interesting because, as you know, we are either regulated or we have exceptions in sandboxes in 5 markets: Singapore, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, UK, and Brunei. And that we're adding more licenses. So we're going out with a heavy focus in Asia. People collect stamps, and we collect licenses, right? So we go out, and then as soon as we get a new license, we do market, we can run the business, and that has a multiplier effect because when we add, for example, Japan, right? It's not just Japan Sing, right? It's Japan Indonesia, Japan Brunei, Japan Malaysia, Japan UK, Japan UAE, and that has a multiplier effect. And I think that may, right, exert high pressure, for demand. And the third one is in Franz's space, right? So we have a partner strategy for go-to-market. We don't go direct. So how do we scale the business with partners? People go is one of them. How do we replicate? People go into other markets, and we get more solutions like people go that embed, send money on exchange, and that, I think that part will really scale the business, and then they'll create demand for our tokens. Okay, so I'm not part of the team, so I can say anything I want. I have no legal ramifications here, but I'm not legal advisor. So, another thing to understand about Chynge is that it's positioned as a remittance platform. When you think about remittance, that's basically just sending money from one country to another. When you shop online, when you buy stuff from Singapore to China, you pay an exchange rate. When you shop in the US, you pay an exchange rate. Now, Chynge is not selfish in the sense that it does not have a closed ecosystem. Its APIs are it. So you can imagine that, like, let's say if I'm an online retail store and I want to provide my customers the best exchange rate, it only makes sense that I might partner up with Chynge. So don't focus on the fact that it's only remittance. Look at the bigger picture. If they can really reduce fees down to zero, there's no reason why online retail stores won't sign on. At least I hope they do. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple more questions. These questions came in yesterday and earlier today, so this one from someone called Franz. While Chynge is a project with massive scope, which particular aspect of the financial system does Chynge intend to target first, and why? So I suppose they may want to know why, which target audience.
So which customer segment are we targeting? We are, on one hand, we are focused on certain customer segments, but the flip side is that it's demand driven. So what are the customers for us? In Singapore, we have an anomaly of a market in the sense that there are lots of foreign workers here, and that they all send money home, right? It's a very competitive market, but it's a big market, so there's enough to go around. So we look at the pyramid of customers, and you look at the bottom third, which is the biggest. These are the foreign workers. They don't send a lot of money, a few $100, maybe $1,000, but they do it every month without fail because their families on the other side. And then it's the seasonality, right? So Ramadan, it goes up for Indonesia. Christmas, it goes up for Philippines, etc. So that's one that we're laser focused on. At the same time, we're not going after that directly, right? So we partner with people go, and MOM, and so how do we scale the business? And the net effect of that partnership is that it has brought our customer acquisition costs down. So if we were to go out traditionally and acquire customers one by one, it would have cost us about $40 to $60 per customer. So with the People Go partnership, that figure dropped to less than $4, $3.80 per customer acquired. So that's what we're after. But at the same time, because we have Franz on board and he is, a private banker, is in his DNA. He's a Swiss banker. He's Swiss. So he's brought a lot of the high-end, high-net-worth customer segment, right? So when that came, we did push it away. Say, we only do, construction workers and maids. We don't do, high-net-worth. We've gone and done that. So it's demand-driven. those transactions are episodic, so they don't send very often. They don't send every month. But they'll send large sums, right? $5 million, per transaction. But then they won't do another transaction for another, 2-3 years. So, and then there's the middle part, right, which are the SMBs. That's also within our radar. But we're resource bound, so that would be the next customer segment that we'll achieve.
And the last question, I think this is a bit more general. It's more about how much time you think you'll complete all the what is up on your roadmap.
I think realistically, I've Rizan at the back. He's our chief architect. He sits in Indonesia. And he runs a team of about 15 engineers, and we're adding 2 every month. We're on a really aggressive growth side on the engineering side. So if we look at the project in just the blockchain project itself, we are in beta stage right now, and I think that the promise in the white paper is Q3. I think we are on track. Simply because we're not on Ethereum, we're on Stellar, and I think it's more of a configuration, engineering rather than writing pure code. So I think the blockchain itself is Q3. We have other products that have already gone GA, generally available. We have Chynge Central, and then also we have Chynge Connect, which we use for people go, and then for other customers, partner solutions that want to embed. Send money for Chynge. So the project that is specific to blockchain and Stellar, it's Q3, and we're confident with that. Right, Riza? Yes, sir. So those are the 3 questions, and I think
Yes, from the community. So now we're going to take questions from this gentleman.
Yeah, just only an illustration here. You talk about the transaction being from fiat to fiat. But basically, how is this being transacted? I mean, it's a fiat to fiat. There has to be physical presence somewhere. So how is this being done?
So you're right. It's fiat to fiat, right? The digitization is abstracted from you, the customer. It's in the back office, right? And so we run that, transparent from you. And so for us, right, our strategy in terms of giving you, the customer, a compelling experience is that we must own both ends of the corridor, right? And then we can control fiat to fiat, we can control the rates, fees are 0, right? And then we can have nostril accounts on both ends, and we can match it. The only way to do that is to be licensed and regulated on both ends, and that's the tough part, right? And yet say that we are all lazy. So I think most fintech companies do not go out to get licensed with one, and few of them, get licensed and regulated, and even fewer get licensed and regulated in multiple jurisdictions. So that's what we've done, right? We are in sandboxes. We have, in principle approvals with several regulators, and then we have incorporated it. So we have Chynge Indonesia is one. We're setting up, Chynge Malaysia, Quran, etc. I think one of the key things that allow us to have that kind of success, and I can't underscore this, is the importance of partners, such as PayPal and YY and the team. We see the entire company behind it, right? We used to sit here. This used to be our home for about 11 months. We just got kicked out June 1. So we're a bit nostalgic. But basically the resources that PayPal comes to bear include things like government relations. So for example, we tell YY that we want to go into we need to talk to Bank of Thailand or a regulator in Japan. He has all that, the company has all the relationships and sets those up for us. And I think that has accelerate the whole process, right? Given us credibility because we're not just a $2 company. We are, we're part of the PayPal incubator. And the third one is basically it prevents us from making mistakes. So, for example, we think we're pretty smart, and that we have a way to talk to regulators because we've done it so many times. So we go to PayPal Japan and General Counsel there, Noriko-san, I present to her, this is how we've done it, right? And this is how we want to do it with the regs in Japan. She listened to me for 45 minutes, right? And at the end of it, she says, Joe-san, in Japan, it is different. And we don't do it this way. And in my head, you could have told me 45 minutes ago, right? And then she went on to tell me, this is how it's done in Japan, and these are all the steps. And to me, is that they were very unnatural steps, right? I wouldn't have done it that way, right? I would have done, our way. One, which would have been wrong, and two, the Japanese would have been so polite and not tell me what's wrong, and then we would have been in an endless loop for years and not get a license, right? So I think that's been key for someone like PayPal Japan. Give us the guidance and give us the cookbook is how to get a license from PayPal Japan. And then we repeat that everywhere, right? So this last one. We are in the UK, right? In a sandbox, and then there's post-Brexit, right? 2000 now, right? 2019. Yeah. So what happens, right? We don't have a license in the EU. Again, we go back to PayPal and say, we get a license in the EU. What do you say? So that's easy. It's Luxembourg with the bank, the regulators will guide you through. So these are the kinds of things that allow us to collect licenses. No, it's not. It actually reduces the cost because if I didn't have, let's say, Chynge UK, right? We just deployed Chynge UK, OTD, right? And then, Chynge Singapore Private Limited. If we didn't have Chynge UK, then we have to go with a partner. And I can't control partners' fees, right? They will have, it wouldn't be zero, it'll probably be expensive, and I have to pass it on to the customer. But, when we have both ends, then we can drive towards zero fees.
Your token is considered to be store value facilities in Singapore?
No, it's not. The token is itself a payment token that I think, as Joe explained just now, locks in the exchange rate at the point of the transaction, and because of its anti-money laundering abilities, it's also considered to be a anti-money laundering token. It's not a stored value facility, which is a little bit like a wallet or it's one of those business facilities that you need to get you can do, but you have to get a permission from the regulator.
I think one is we have a payment token as a store of value, and the other part, what you're referring to, is SVF, store of value, which is a wallet, right? So we went up a wallet. But token is a store of value. But I think the way you paraphrase the question is that it's recognized by the MES. Basically, the MES doesn't recognize anything. Right? Because we're regulated, we're licensed, and we have a remittance license. We're subject to the Act. The Act you wrote, right? To MES, and they gave an interesting.
No. The SVF is a industry jargon that has regulatory implications. It's a wallet.
I mean, it's regulatory. MES, it's available to have SVF.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
How are the basics of the token still recognized the issuers who use it? Is it revenue? Or is it? Oh, it's not. Okay. So are you saying that it's not that? Okay, then are you saying that it's revenue?
I think we have to consult. We did consult with our auditors and our accountants, and I think they were structured in such a way that it's hybrid. It's part revenue and it's part something else. And then, but basically, it will be taxed, right? And we're looking at ways how to minimize that tax. So, for example, we're a startup. We've got 3-4 years old. We've burned a ton of money, right? And so we have losses carried over. So that will apply to a lot of this revenue to zero out, profit. And then moving forward, right? Again, we're burning, money in engineering, right? Sales, marketing, compliance, and government relations. I think that would help, fund those activities. But we'll comply with IRAS, and then but Singapore is a relatively low tax rate regime, and then but we'll comply, and then we'll use what we have from historical losses.
Hi. So one of the customer segmentation we are targeting is the bottom half of the pyramid, right? So from what I know, there's a push for e-payments to be made instead of cash because e-payments are more trackable. In terms of salary payments for their salary. So does this benefit change when salaries are paid using e-payments? And in addition, because of my project, I've heard of this app called POSB Jolly. It's another remittance service developed by POSB. So on top of remittance services, they also have other additional benefits if people sign up with them. So how do you convert the people from that to using Chynge? Yeah.
A few things, right? So it's a big pie. And, I don't expect to eat all of it, right? So I'll share some of it with POSB. And so I think new models like that, e-payments, nets, right? I think that works for us. So for example, there's Pay Now, right? There's Pay Now, there's Fast. We can't wait for those APIs to be published so that we can integrate that into our Chynge solution. We're working closely with Thailand, Thailand, there's PromptPay. So how do we work with PromptPay? The UK, right? In the EU, there's open banking, there's PSP2. How do we integrate that into the solution? So as soon as there's automation, we want to fold that in so that for you, the customer experience is that you can send money, one click, and it just goes, right? And all those things in the back, in terms of Pay Now, PromptPay, PSP2, open banking, API economy, and then all the compliance parts of it, right? Your money launderer, right? Business financing, vice, drugs, trafficking, all that good stuff, right? All taken care of that for you, right? So that's the other piece. So we look for automation and want to integrate as much of it as possible. POSB as a competitor, I don't really worry about that because it's not in their DNA to be innovative and come up with new business models. Right? And I think it's the guys who are the super smart guys who are spitting out code in the mom's bedroom, right? These are the guys that we worry about because they're going to come out with something out from left field and that we didn't.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
Thanks for the opportunity to ask you all these questions. I have one essentially a business model. I think as I see it is contingent upon having bank accounts on all various countries that you're operating under. Clearly falls within, of course, the remit of the remittance and the foreign exchange of fiat tokens, vice versa. Given also the fact that you are disrupting the business model on the incumbents as a challenge, and I'm wondering obviously whether in terms of dependency on all of the banks, how open are they to partnering up, allowing you to use their accounts, fiats, and all these things?
by the way we transfer money. So our DNA is really protecting markets where we can sort of stop here competition and not getting the banks involved when other people get involved in business. So that's, yeah, there are not that many candidates. In most countries where we are opening up, it's difficult to look at that. It's challenging, but we need to do it.
So your short answer is no, right? And so if I take there are 3 Malaysian banks in Singapore, I'll take one of them, right? They're very active in the, really the Singapore Fintech Association, come to all the events, MES, all that, very supportive. And so something I can do, that's what I do. Apply for a bank account. No, right? And so I thought that we're going to the normal channel and it's no. So I talked to the fintech guy, right? And he said, we look at your model and we sent it to client. And so, they don't put the money where the mouth is. So they want to do it on that. Exactly, right? So, and they're scared shitless, people like us, right? Pardon my French. But we're fortunate, we've gone through corporate incubators and such like PayPal, and one of them is Finland, and there's a UOB, something. So we've gone back to them and said that we have this problem, we need to open an account. The default answer is no. If you're a remitter, I won't open an account with you. I said, but we're family, right? We came to Finland, you celebrated us, you got to help us. So this is kind of where we are. And then it's a strategic relationship, right? Because there are 19 markets, and this is where we operate. So it's Hong Kong, Brunei, Malaysia, and then we're going after that. So I think that has been key. And I think we've also, tried to understand where the concerns is really around money laundering. So I think they give us like a very long set of questions that Aaron has articulately responded to. We've given them our AML policy that we believe is robust. And then of course we've Aaron's Stella, CV, saying we've got deep talent. So the jury is still out. We're waiting to hear from a few banks. And then, but again, we don't want it to be transactional, bring up market after market. We want to have one strategic bank, and let's go.
Let me just add something that this de-risking approach that many banks are taking, it will come to an end. It is a reaction to so much of the lapses and failures of compliance and regulatory compliance. So they all shrink back with a very conservative approach. And you are right also that many of the banks see us, these companies, as playing in a field that they feel that they ought to also be playing in, so they see the competition there. But because of the rise of the digital money, and it's just something that's completely unstoppable. So they will find that even they will have to stop the obstacles and they will be part of the solution. Most of us who work in the industry, like yourself, you probably observe this as well. And different banks, I think, have a different mindset. But many of them are appointing, heads of digital business and so on. And I think they are looking into these issues, and I think they will get there.
Anything else? Okay, pizza's here, so thank you guys, thank you Michael. So feel free to stay behind and chat one-to-one. Karen has something?
For those of you we had the lucky draw, we have some, up to US $500 worth of tokens to give away. This is our clip with there's a bowl there.